Welcome to Warrior Bulletin News, your source for fast, accurate, and trusted headlines from around the world. Stay informed and never miss a story. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. There is a moment on live television that you cannot fake. You cannot script it. You cannot rehearse it. It is the moment when someone on camera receives a piece of information that they were not expecting and their entire body language shifts in real time. Their posture changes, their facial expression changes, the cadence of their voice changes. Everything about them tells you that something just happened that was not part of the plan. And this morning on First Take, I watched that exact moment happen to Stephen A. Smith, and what he revealed afterward has the potential to fundamentally alter the trajectory of the Golden State Warriors franchise. Let me take you through it from the beginning because the context matters. The show had been rolling along normally. Stephen A. and Shannon Sharpe were in the middle of a conversation about NBA teams heading into the postseason and which rosters still have significant weaknesses that need to be addressed. Their Warriors had come up naturally in the discussion because they are one of the more interesting teams in the league right now. They are not a rebuilding team. They still have Stephen Curry, who, despite being in his late 30s, is still one of the most dangerous offensive players in basketball. They have Draymond Green, who, for all the controversy that surrounds him, is still an elite defensive mind and a player who makes everyone around him smarter. They have Kristaps Porzingis, who has given them a legitimate scoring and shot-blocking threat in the front court, and they have a collection of young players like Brandon Podziemski and Gui Santos who are developing in real time and showing flashes of being contributors. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly, the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. But Shannon was making the point that the Warriors, for all their talent, are still missing something. He said that the team is built around shooting and ball movement, and that while that style of play is beautiful to watch and can be devastatingly effective in the regular season, it sometimes gets bogged down in the playoffs when the pace slows, the physicality ramps up, and half-court offense becomes the name of the game. He pointed to the fact that the Warriors do not have a player who can consistently get into the paint and create pressure at the rim. Curry is the greatest shooter of all time, but he is not a downhill attacker. Podziemski is young and developing, but he is not yet as a consistent penetrator. And without that element, their Warriors' offense can become one-dimensional when the three-point shots are not falling. Stephen A. was agreeing with this assessment, but he was talking about how the Warriors need to find that missing piece, that player who can complement Curry's shooting with a different kind of offensive skill set, someone who can attack the rim, draw fouls, and create looks for others off the dribble. He said that Steve Kerr, for all his brilliance as a coach, cannot scheme his way around the fundamental imitation of not having a dynamic point of attack creator in the backcourt alongside Curry. And then Molly Kerim sent them to commercial. When the show came back, something was different. I noticed it within the first 2 seconds. Stephen A. was not doing his usual thing. He was not smiling. He was not gesturing. He was sitting perfectly still in his chair with his hands folded on the desk in front of him. His eyes were locked forward with this intensity that I've only seen from him a handful of times in all my years of watching this show. There was something almost haunting about the stillness. Stephen A. Smith is never still. He is always moving, always talking, always performing. And when that constant motion stops, it means something. Shannon clocked it immediately. I saw his eyes narrow as he looked over at Stephen A., trying to read the situation. Molly started to introduce the next segment, but Stephen A. spoke first in a voice that was barely above a conversational volume. He said, "Listen, I need to tell you something. During the break, I made a phone call, and what I am about to share with you is going to change the conversation about the Golden State Warriors entirely. My heart rate went up. I am not going to pretend otherwise, because when Stephen A. uses that tone, when he drops the showman persona and becomes the reporter, the information that follows is almost always significant, and what he said next confirmed that instinct. He revealed that the Golden State Warriors and the Sacramento Kings have been in advanced discussions about a potential trade for De'Aaron Fox. Not casual conversations, not the kind of general inquiries that front offices make all the time. Advanced substantive negotiations where both sides have discussed the structure of a potential deal, the assets involved, and the salary implications. Stephen A. was careful with his words, almost to the point of being overly precise, which told me he was quoting his source as closely as he could without revealing who that source was. And the picture he painted was one of two franchises that are actively, deliberately working toward making this deal happen. Now, I need you to understand the full scope of what De'Aaron Fox on the Golden State Warriors would mean, because this is not just another trade rumor. This is the kind of acquisition that would fundamentally change the DNA of a franchise, and the reason it would be so transformative is because Fox fills the exact hole that Shannon had been describing just minutes before the commercial break. Their Warriors need a dynamic guard who can attack the rim, create in the half-court, and put pressure on the defense in ways that Curry cannot. De'Aaron Fox is that player. He might be the single best fit for what the Warriors need of any player currently in the NBA. Let me paint this picture for you. Imagine a starting backcourt of Stephen Curry and De'Aaron Fox. Just sit with that for a moment. Curry, the greatest shooter in the history of basketball, sharing a backcourt with one of the fastest, most explosive guards in the league. Think about what that looks like from a defensive perspective. You are the opposing team's defensive coordinator, and you have to game plan against this backcourt. How do you do it? If you put your best perimeter defender on Curry, which is what most teams do, then Fox is going to attack your second best perimeter defender off the dribble, get into the paint at will, and either finish at the rim or draw a foul. If you shade your defense toward Fox to prevent his penetration, Curry is going to find open space on the perimeter and make you pay from three. If you try to split the difference and play balanced coverage, both of them are going to find cracks in the defense because there simply is not enough defensive attention to go around. The two-man game between Curry and Fox would be practically impossible to guard. Imagine Fox bringing the ball up the floor in transition with Curry running alongside him. The defense has to decide in real time whether to sprint back to match up with Curry or stop the ball against Fox. Either choice is wrong. If they prioritize Curry, Fox gets a layup. If they prioritize Fox, Curry gets an open three. And in the half-court, the possibilities multiply even further. Fox can run the pick and roll while Curry works off screens as a decoy, drawing the defense's attention and creating driving lanes for Fox. Or Curry can be the ball handler and Fox can work off the ball using his speed to make backdoor cuts, slip screens, and get into open space for easy baskets. The versatility of having two elite guards who can both create and score at a high level is something that very few teams in the league possess. And the Warriors, with their system of ball movement and player movement that Steve Kerr has built over the last decade, would be the ideal environment to maximize that versatility. Shannon's response to all of this was measured and insightful, which told me that he immediately grasped the significance of what Stephen A. had shared. He did not try to make it into a debate. He sat with it, processed it, and then offered his analysis. He talked about how the Warriors have been searching for this missing piece ever since Klay Thompson left. He said that the dynasty years were built on the foundation of a backcourt that could hurt you in multiple ways, with Curry's shooting and Thompson's two-way ability creating a multi-layer defensive attack that was almost impossible to game plan against. When Thompson left, their Warriors lost that second dimension. They tried to fill it with different players and different approaches, but nothing has quite worked. Fox, Shannon argued, would not replace Thompson because the two players are fundamentally different in their skill sets, but he would restore that multi-dimensional quality to the backcourt that the Warriors have been missing. And then Shannon made a point that I think is the most important thing anyone said during the entire segment. He talked about what Fox would do for Curry's longevity. Curry is in his late 30s. He has been the primary offensive engine of the Warriors for over a decade. The physical toll of that workload is immense. Curry still plays at an elite level, but the burden of creation, the burden of being the one player that every defense game plans around, the burden of having to generate offense for everyone else while also being the team's best scorer, that takes a toll. With Fox handling a significant portion of the creation responsibilities, Curry could play a different role. He could play more off the ball, which is where he is at his most efficient and most dangerous. He could conserve energy during the regular season and be fresh for the playoffs. He could focus on what he does better than anyone in history, which is shooting the basketball without having to also be the primary ball handler and facilitator on every possession. I was watching this segment unfold and I kept thinking about Brandon Podziemski and what this would mean for his development. And look, I know the Podziemski situation is a sensitive topic for Warriors fans. This kid has been catching an unbelievable amount of hate this season, and in my opinion, most of it is completely unjustified. He has played every single game this year. He works incredibly hard. Steve Kerr has defended him repeatedly and publicly. He was booed at a San Francisco baseball game and at a Valkyries WNBA game, which is honestly embarrassing behavior by the fans. And Nick Frieda reported that the backlash has made him noticeably quieter in the locker room. That is heartbreaking for a young player who is doing everything in his power to improve and contribute. But, here is the thing about Podziemski in the context of a Fox trade. Adding Fox would actually be the best thing that could happen for Podziemski's development. Right now, Podziemski is being asked to carry a burden that is too heavy for a player at his stage of development. He is being asked to be a primary ball handler and creator alongside Curry. And when he struggles in that role, which all young players do, the fans and the media come down on him like a ton of bricks. With Fox in the fold, Podziemski's role would shift dramatically. He would no longer be the second guard that everything runs through. He would be a complementary piece, a player who comes off the bench or plays alongside Fox and Curry in certain lineups and contributes his shooting, his energy, his willingness to take charges, and his improving playmaking in a role that is commensurate with his current skill level. That is a much healthier situation for a young player. That is how you actually develop talent. You do not throw a 22-year-old into the fire and expect him to perform like a 10-year veteran. You surround him with established players who can shoulder the load and let him grow at his own pace. And I know what some people are going to say. They are going to say, if Fox is so good, why would the Kings trade him? And it is a fair question with a straightforward answer. The Kings have not been able to build a championship contender around Fox. Despite his individual brilliance, the team has not taken the next step. And at some point, both the player and the organization have to make a pragmatic assessment about whether the current path is leading somewhere or if a change of scenery would benefit everyone. Their Warriors, by contrast, have the infrastructure, the coaching, the culture, and the existing talent to put Fox in a position where he can compete for championships immediately. That is a powerful argument. The financial and logistical aspects of this trade would be complex, no doubt about that. Fox is on a significant contract and making the money work would require some creative roster maneuvering by the Warriors. They would almost certainly have to include substantial assets going back to Sacramento. Whether that is draft picks, young players, or some combination of both. But, Their Warriors have shown throughout the Curry era that they are willing to make bold moves to put a championship-caliber roster on the floor. They traded for Kevin Durant. They made aggressive trades and signings to maintain their competitiveness. And with Curry's remaining years as an elite player being finite, the urgency to maximize this window has never been higher. Steve Kerr's system would also be an incredible environment for Fox. Kerr runs an offense that is predicated on ball movement, player movement, and spacing. It is a system that creates easy shots through constant motion rather than through isolation and one-on-one play. For a player like Fox, who has spent most of his career in Sacramento running a more traditional point guard offense, where he is asked to create everything off the dribble in one-on-one situations, the Kerr system would be a revelation. Imagine Fox with the ball in his hands, Curry running off screens on one side of the floor, Porzingis spacing the floor as a shooting big, and the defense in constant rotation trying to account for all of it. The ball finds Fox with a driving lane because the defense has been pulled apart by the movement. He gets into the paint, the help defender rotates off Curry, Fox kicks it out to Curry for an open three. Or, Fox finishes at the rim because Porzingis has pulled the shot-blocking center out to the perimeter. The combinations are endless. The mismatches are everywhere, and the defense has no answer. I also want to talk about what this would mean for the Warriors in transition because I think this is one of the most exciting aspects of the potential pairing. Their Warriors have always been a team that thrives in the open court. Their ball movement and spacing translate beautifully to transition basketball because players are already in the habit of running, moving without the ball, and making the extra pass. Now, add Aaron Fox, one of the fastest players in NBA history, to that equation. Their Warriors would go from being a good transition team to potentially the most dangerous fast break team in the entire league. Fox pushing the ball up the floor at full speed with Curry and Podziemski filling the lanes, Porzingis trailing as a shooting option, Draymond Green making reads as a point forward. That is a transition attack that would generate easy baskets at a rate that few teams could match. Stephen wrapped up the segment by making a comment that really stuck with me. He said, and I am paraphrasing here, that the great teams in NBA history were always defined by how their best players complemented each other. The Jordan Bulls worked because Jordan's scoring was complemented by Pippen's playmaking and defense. The Kobe-Shaq Lakers worked because Kobe's perimeter game was complemented by Shaq's dominance in the paint. The Curry-Durant Warriors worked because Curry's shooting was complemented by Durant's scoring versatility. And he suggested that Curry and Fox could be the next great complementary pairing, two elite guards with completely different skill sets that, when combined, create an offensive attack that is practically impossible to defend. That is a bold claim, but when you think about the specific ways in which these two players' games mesh, it is hard to argue against the logic.